Hey friends, I'm glad to be with you here tonight for an author chat. We're going to be talking about my new, I do that, English historical novel, No Ocean Too Wide. So it just came out this week on Tuesday, so it's been a really fun and exciting week to hear people's response to the story. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. We'll try not to share too many spoilers because I know some of you just received your book and you haven't read it yet. So we'll talk in general about the story and try not to do too many spoilers for you so you can really be surprised and enjoy it. So, I see some friends popping in. Kaylee is here and Tina and Scott. That's my husband. That's fun. He's here too. So glad that you're here. And Karen's here and Mary Kay and Brenda, Chloe, a lot of friends popping in to say hello. So thank you for stopping by. So let me just tell you a little bit about our giveaway so you'll know what's going on with that. I'm going to do 2 author chats this week, one tonight and then one on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. So I'll have giveaways on both of those chats. And the way you enter the giveaway is just to leave a comment or ask a question. I did take some questions ahead of time, so I'll probably answer those first, and if we have more time, we'll answer the ones that come up on the side. But sometimes that's hard because it goes scrolling by so quickly. But go ahead and use that as a way to enter the giveaway. And in the giveaway, we'll be, of course, giving away a copy of No Ocean Too Wide. And we'll also be giving you this fun postcard. This is an antique postcard of the Allen Line, which was the steamship line that brought most of the children across from England to Canada. The British home children would come in groups with some supervisors. And that's how they came, and I thought that would be fun. So this is an antique postcard. There's no message on the back of this one, but I liked it because it had the lady and the children, so I thought that was kind of fun. And then we also have some Forget-Me-Not seeds. These are to remind you of the 100,000 British home children that came across. And so it's a way you can scatter the seeds and you can remember the children. So that's what the Forget-Me-Not seeds are. And then we also have these really pretty leaf earrings from Trades of Hope. And Trades of Hope is an organization that employs a lot of widows and women who are poor in different countries around the world, like India and different countries in Africa, that kind of thing, to make jewelry and different products. And then they're sold here in the United States so that they can make a living. And I thought that's kind of neat, a connection with the story of helping a family that needs an income. And that's kind of the situation that we see at the beginning of No Ocean Too Wide, of a mom who's working really hard to provide for her family and try to keep them all together. So those are the giveaway items, and as I said, you can enter the giveaway by just leaving a comment or asking a question. And let's see, my brain's a little scattered. You'll have to be patient with me because I know a lot of you know, I'll give you a little personal update about my cancer journey. Some of you know that I was diagnosed with colon cancer in February, early in February. And then in mid-March, I had colon resection surgery where they take out the cancer part, put it back together, and give you about 6 weeks to recover from that. And then I started chemotherapy at the end of April. And so I'm in about, quite a ways through that. And I'm just really grateful for the way the Lord has sustained me and helped me through that. I have one more IV treatment on July 2nd, and I continue to take pills off and on every other week, all week long, that have some tough side effects, but they're tolerable, and the Lord's given me grace and comfort to get through those, so I'm really grateful for that. And I have great support from my husband, who's taken over some of the cooking and does a lot of the things around the house for me, and some friends have done that too, and that's been really helpful. And just a lot of people have sent cards and gifts, and many people have prayed for me, and I really appreciate that. And I can see the Lord is answering your prayers, and I'm doing really well. Expect to recover from this. And one of the side effects, though, is that it does make your brain work really slow. So sometimes I'll walk across the room and I'll say, now, why did I walk over here? I can't quite remember things, and sometimes words don't come. So tonight you may see me hesitate because I'm trying to think of the right word to say, and hopefully I can pull it all together. I've got some notes that'll help me too if I get stuck. But because of that, I have had to take a little break from my writing. The team at Waterbrook, my editor there, and the team, they've been really kind and told me, take the time I need. So I'm not writing right now. I'm, doing some promotion things for the release of this book, but I'm not actually writing the book. But I hope to get back to that later this summer, hopefully in August. To get past the treatments, I'll be able to think a little more, or I'm just going to press through because we have to find out what happens to Garth and Grace, right? So I want to just tell you about that and thank you for your prayers and ask you to continue to pray that the Lord would sustain me through this and that He would use the medications for good, for healing. I'm doing a lot of natural things too, a lot of supplements and adjusting my diet and trying to work on it that way. And I think that's really been helpful too. So let's see, we talked about the giveaway. You can enter that just by leaving a comment or by asking a question. And people did give me some questions ahead of time, so I'm going to just go through those and answer those. And that's kind of the way we'll do it tonight, is I'll just answer several questions and chat about the book. And that's probably what we'll do. Okay, so the first question I have is from Ginger Carroll. She said, thinking of your historical novels in general, what have been the main resources and in what general proportion in your research, personal location visits, published histories, published or personal diaries that you locate, internet, etc. So she wants to know kind of like how I do my research. So this is a really great question. In fact, I have a page on my website where I kind of go through how I do my research. And what she mentioned there, the idea of reading the personal stories and the journals and anything that's published at the time. My book is set like 100 years ago, so it's possible to find online a lot of the resources that were published at that time, so I can read those. And then with this book, I got connected with the British Home Children's Advocacy and Research Association, and those people have been wonderful. The CEO is Lori. I don't know if I can say her last name right, but Turansky. Anyway, Lori is a wonderful person, and she did a lot of work on the website. They have just a ton of articles. So if you're interested in British home children, as you read the story and you'd like to know more about it, I recommend that you go to their website and just look at all the resources there. So today, in Canada, they say 1 in 10 people has, even more than that, more than 1 in 10, have a descendant who came to Canada as a British home child. And so they have links there at their website where you can actually look up your relative, that you're a descendant of, and find out like the ship they came on, and they tell you how you can contact the children's homes that sent your relative to Canada. So it's very interesting. And they also have collected a lot of personal stories because these children were sent to Canada, some in 1939, so clear up until right before World War II. So some of them, a few are still alive. Sometimes, many of them have passed away, but some of them that are like in their 90s and so are still alive. And I've heard recorded, interviews of them and read a lot of their stories. So that's really helpful to me because when you can have the firsthand information from someone, that is what really helps you understand the situation better to be able to really write a historical novel. So I really recommend that. But I do use lots of books. So these are some of the books that I use. Nation Builders, Barnardo, Children in Canada. Dr. Barnardo was one of the people who had children's homes in England, and he sent more children to Canada than any other group. So a lot of people will look at the Barnardo homes, contact them again and get information about their relatives. But they had great stories in here. And also I read Promises of Home, Stories of Canada's British Home Children. And they, the author here, there's her name, she collected lots of stories, and it was just so interesting to read those. And then The Little Immigrants was another one about orphans. They weren't all orphans, of course. Actually, they said most of them were not orphans who were sent, but that's the title of this book. And then Love and Toil, Motherhood in Outcast London, kind of gave me a view of what it was like in London now. Why were these children sent away, and what caused that in their society that this problem came up, that there were so many poor, abandoned, and orphan children that needed help. And then probably the key book, the best book is The Golden Bridge, which is Young Immigrants to Canada, and that's by Roger Coley. So those are excellent books if you're interested in that, or you find out that you have a descendant. I mean, you're a descendant of a British home child. You might like to get some of those and learn more about British home children. So thanks. That was a great question about research. It's really important, and that's often how I find the story, is doing a lot of reading first, getting that all in my brain, and then thinking about how I can put that all into a story. So Stephanie asks, how do you come up with your character names? That's a fun question. A lot of times I look online, there's some sites that have baby name sites, and you can look back at a particular year, like, you know, in 1900, what were the popular names for boys and what were the popular names for girls? So sometimes I use those and go back and try to keep it kind of accurate so it feels like they were actually born in that time period. And then Stephanie Cox asked, do you ever find yourself writing and rewriting your story? How do you know it's right or just the way you want it? Stephanie, you sound like you're a writer. Because that's a problem that we often have is, you know, I'm sure that definitely I rewrite it. I mean, I've heard of authors who are just totally gifted, like Karen Kingsbury. I remember once I went and watched to a book signing that she had, and she said that she sees the story in her mind like a movie, and she just sits down and she just types it out, and that's it. And I even asked her if it was a question and answer, and I said, well then, you know, how many times after that do you revise or write it? And she looked kind of embarrassed. I kind of wish I wouldn't have asked, but she said, I really don't. I write it once, I turn it into my editor, and that's it. I thought, that's very interesting, because when I don't have that gift, I have to rewrite many times to get it right. So, I mean, sometimes you can use critique partners to help you know, that you've got it polished up when you're first, you know, when you're learning how to write. That's really helpful. So that's one thing, but I definitely do a lot of rewriting. And in fact, each day when I start, I usually kind of reread what I wrote yesterday to kind of get me going. So I do, and then at the end, you know, I go back and go through it again a lot too. Sometimes I'll get like about a third of the way through and I think, oh, I just got to get the whole thing in my mind again. So then I'll read all the way up to that point and then start again. So it's hard to hold it all in your brain. But I tried to do that. Kaylee asks, what do you want readers to take away from this book? Be careful. I don't want to tell too much about the plot. But this whole idea of families that are in need and children who need protection and care is just really important to me. My husband and I, from the beginning, have had a ministry to families. And he writes parenting books. He has several parenting books, and he speaks all over the country. Last weekend he was at the homeschooling conference in New Mexico, helping homeschooling parents to try to get their parenting skills on track so they can get their homeschooling done. But we were foster parents, and we were able to adopt our 2 foster daughters. So we've seen a little bit of that side of life, and they're a huge blessing to us. I can't imagine our family without them. They're twins. That's kind of where I got the idea to have twins in the story. But they're twin girls that are not identical, and they're very unique and special to us. So just this, I hope readers, even though the story took place 100 years ago, I hope they'll think about families that are in crisis and ways they can help families that are in need, especially widows and orphans. It's just, you know, that's what James says is true religion, is to, you know, look out for them. And so that's one of the messages that I hope will come through in the story, and that people will really take that to heart, and it'll be meaningful to them. It is interesting to see how people's views about children and their place in society and caring for them has changed in 100 years. It's, you know, it's much different now, and seems to be much better, but still there are children in need. There are children that are in foster care that need homes, that need to be adopted, everything. So I hope readers will be prompted just to think a little bit about that. Thanks, Kaylee, for asking that question. Anita asked, what is something surprising you learned when you were doing research for this story? So like I said, I did a lot of research, a lot of reading and listening to personal stories. And I was very surprised as I learned about the background of the British home children and how that whole phenomenon started. maybe we shouldn't call it a phenomenon, we should call it a child immigration scheme. Because in the mid-1800s, there was a huge revival in England, and the Christians were spurred on to think about how they could take help with social issues, and that there were so many poor children and poor families. So they started, opening up homes and, refuge places during the day that these children could have food and some education, that kind of thing. So Christians were the ones that actually started these children's homes, most of them. Dr. Bernardo was, claimed to be a very strong Christian, and one of the first ladies, I think her name is Maria Rye, they also seemed to be a very strong believer, and they were motivated by their faith to help children. But, I was surprised to learn how things changed over the years, and it just became, there was just so many children. And like Dr. Bernardo had a saying that he would never close his door. He would always take in any child that needed, to be off the street or whatever. But that meant he had to have a back door, and he had to have a way for these children to be taken care of. And so they had, I think one of the first ladies, Maria Rye, went to London, and she heard a lecture from the people who were doing the orphan trains in the United States, where they were taking poor children from the big cities and sending them out west to farms into the Midwest. And so she thought, well, Canada is a province of Great Britain. We could send our children there. And so she was the first one to take a group of about 8 children there. And that's how it got started. So I was surprised. It's kind of how it started, that there was the connection between the orphan trains and the British Home Children, and just how the desire of the Christians was to help, but in the end, it just got out of hand, and they couldn't follow up with the kids, and there wasn't a lot of screening of people who could take the children. They paid $3. They filled out a form. I think they had to say that they attended a church or something. And that was it. They could take a child, any child they chose, and then that child had to go and work for them. Most of the children were not adopted. They went and became indentured workers. Like the people signed a contract with the sending home and the receiving homes, that they would take care of the child till they were 18 for boys, and some of the homes, the girls, it was 21. Other homes, it was 18 for girls also, and they had to work, and that was what most of them did, even young children. So it's pretty surprising when I read that. I was like, they put kids to work like that? I mean, I know that, life was different then, and people lived on a farm and kids all worked. But when you read the stories of how they were treated, that was what was different. There was a real strong prejudice against them. Probably, remember, you've seen or Anne of Green Gables or read the books. She was a Canadian home child, and she suffered prejudice because of that. And the British home children were even more scorned, because there was a belief at that time, if you were poor, that was like sinful, and you had bad blood, and they said it was going to pollute the population, that kind of thing. So the kids were really, put off by themselves a lot of times. Sometimes they weren't allowed to go to school. Sometimes they slept in the barn. It was really interesting reading the stories, very eye-opening. So I was surprised by a lot of things that I read there. Somebody asked, do you have a personal connection to the British home children in my family? And I'm not sure. My husband's family is from Ontario, Canada, and that's where the majority of these children were sent. And so I asked my mother-in-law, Shirley, are you on, Shirley? Do you know if you have any English, grandparents or great-grandparents that could have come this way? And she wasn't sure. She said she knew that her mother's family, parent, probably came from England. She wasn't sure what age, and we haven't really looked into it yet. We need to research. We need to go online and get the names and stuff, and try to see if we can figure out if they came as home children or if they came as a family together, because that happened too. So not everybody who came from England was a home child. Some came the other way. But anyway, so I do have friends and relatives in Ontario, and so I'm excited that I can write a story that is set in an area that our family has a connection to. So that's interesting for me. And then, what was your biggest challenge when writing No Ocean Too Wide? So I think for me, probably the thing that was the biggest challenge was trying to give a balanced view. I thought, how am I going to do this? Because I know Christians started this, they had good intentions, and yet look at what happened to some of these children, and how am I going to do that in the story? I just wasn't sure, how was I going to portray that? So I decided that I would have the hero come from a wealthy family, and he have his mother and him be supporters of Dr. Bernardo's homes, and have seen the presentation that Dr. Bernardo used to do. He would have these huge meetings and invite all these people in, to be supporters, and he would have the children all dressed, and they would do musical things and recite stuff and put on a big show. So anyway, that was kind of his publicity campaign to raise funds, because he needed to raise a lot of money to take care of all these kids. So I decided I would give the hero that background so that that's what he saw and that's what he believed. And then I would have the heroine, her family are the ones who are experiencing what's happening when her younger siblings are taken away, and she has to go and search for them. So that was a challenge to figure out how to do that, and then how to portray it in a fair way so that you can see both sides and really understand and yet give an honest view. That's not how it should have been cared for. Okay, now Lindsay and Phyllis both were surprised that there will be a second McAllister family novel. And I know they were kind of like, what? And, I feel kind of bad about this, because in the first cover design, they had on the front, McAllister Family Novel Book 1. I thought, great. Well, then there was this big change of my cover, and they scrapped the first cover, even though they said it was the final cover, and I showed it to everybody. They are publishing, our publisher is Waterbrook, and they're actually owned by Penguin Random House in New York. And I don't usually hear much from New York, but evidently they felt the cover needed to be changed. They wanted children on the cover because they thought that is what would really grab the most readers. Originally it had a heroine on the cover, and they felt, no, we need children. So the cover was changed, and when they changed it, they did not put on book number 1, McAllister Family Book number 1. They just said a novel. So people who jumped in, and my early readers, some of them were like, they got to the end of the book and they're like, wait, there's more to the story. And one person even suggested, why didn't you just add 100 pages and tell us, the rest of the story of the whole family, of everything? And I can't do that, because my contract, I already was like 20,000 words over what I was doing in my contract. So I could not tell the whole story. There's just too much that happened to this family, and I wanted to portray all the different sides, some of the different ways that children were treated and how they ended up. And so I wanted, in book 2, we're going to follow Garth, and we're going to follow Grace, and we're going to find out what happens to them. So I'm sorry you have to wait for that. But I just want you to know, if you're just starting, this is a book with a sequel. It does have a happy ending for, some of the characters, and hopefully a satisfying ending. But it is book 1 of 2 books. And it was going to be 3 books, but my publisher said, no, you have to do it in 2 books. So there is a sequel coming, and we'll finish up the story. It actually is going to be 10 years later, and it's going to focus on Garth and also on Grace. And Garth will have become a soldier, a Canadian soldier in World War I, and now he's returning. So we'll have the whole, because a lot of the home boys, the British ones who came to Canada, served in the military during World War I, and many were killed. So I wanted to talk about that, and I also wanted to show, what happened to Grace. I won't tell you, because I don't want you to know, and spoil it for you, but she has a totally different kind of story. And, I wanted to show that too. So book 2 is coming. Lord willing, pray for me that I can get that written for you. And then the next question is, what character did you enjoy writing the most? And I think I would have to say Katie, that 14-year-old twin sister of Garth, and who goes through a lot of different trials. But I just really enjoyed kind of stepping into her shoes and writing her story. And then I was also asked, which character gave you the most grief? I would have to say Laura, because she's kind of in a desperate situation, and she's kind of impulsive, and she makes some mistakes and chooses to do some things that might not seem right? But so I had to balance that out. And, you know, I like a story where there's a character who really struggles with, you know, learning a lesson and seeing, you know, they make this kind of choice and it's not a good choice and there are consequences. So Laura sees that. But she gave me a lot of grief because I was trying to figure out how to write that in the right way that readers would still identify with her and want to cheer for her and help her see her get her goals in the story, but also, you know, give her some challenges and things she needs to learn and overcome. So I hope that readers will enjoy Laura too. So I did tell you a little bit about book 2. So if you enjoy the story, I know some of you who are on here are in my Reading Friends group, and you've already posted your reviews. I'm so grateful for that. Well, you know, Goodreads has like over 100 already, and Amazon is closing in with I think 40 something. So if you are an early reader and you did post on Goodreads, copy that and send it over to Amazon, and let's move those Amazon reviews up too. So because when you post a review on Amazon, the more reviews you have, the more likely they are to show your book. It helps me, and it also helps other readers when they, you know, if they're trying to decide, should I spend my money to get this book, you know, and when they see that you like it and you enjoyed it and what you liked about it, that really helps them. And you don't have to retell the plot; it doesn't have to be long. Mainly just tell, you know, what you enjoyed about the story, what you thought of it, and you know, reviews are not tough to write, and you don't actually want to tell the whole plot. Just, you know, give a little summary of something and tell what you liked, and that's me. And I really appreciate that when you help me that way. And many of you have made some really fun images with quotes, and I know Phyllis did a whole bunch for us, and several other people did, and we've used those on social media. And I know next week there's going to be a Just Read Instagram. Anyway, a lot more of those are coming. They're really fun and pretty, so if you see those, share those too, and that's a really nice thing to do. I really appreciate that. So I wanted to just tell you again, for people who came in later, a little bit about the giveaway so that you can take part in that if you'd like to. We're going to be giving away a signed copy of No Ocean Too Wide. And this is for Canadian or US. So, you know, if you're in Canada, probably what I'll do is I'll have my publisher send it from their Canadian warehouse, and I'll send you a booklet so that you can put it in front of the book. The birds looking out there. So even if you're a Canadian person and you're the winner, I want to be sure that I won't be able to mail you these other prizes, probably because mailing things to Canada is super expensive. There's jewelry, an antique postcard from the steamship line, and then the forget-me-not seeds to scatter and remember home children. Instead, I'll send a $25 gift card if you're in the Canadian one. I can do that easily in the mail. So it's US and Canada. And even if you're not watching this live, this giveaway, I won't choose a winner until Sunday night at 8 o'clock. Because there's a talk tonight and there's another talk on Saturday. Each of those talks I'll be doing a giveaway. Similar type of, you know, gifts both nights. And I want people who aren't able to watch it live to also enter. So even if you don't see this live, you're watching it, you know, Friday or whatever, you can still leave a comment or ask a question. I'll try to go back through those, and I will try to answer some of those. So come and see, and then on Monday I'll post who the winners are for the giveaways so that you have a chance to come and see who they are. So I want to encourage you, there's also a really nice book launch giveaway going on my blog, which is at my website, which is just my name, which is on the front there, you can see. Just go to carrieturansky.com, then click on the blog, and scroll down a couple posts till you see the book launch giveaway. And you can enter there, and that's also open to Canadian and US people. So there's different prizes for Canadians and US readers that I wanted to include on my Canadian friends, since this story takes place there too. So stop by my blog, a lot of fun things there. There's more about the book cover design in case you were interested in that story. Today I posted about who were the British home children, more about them, and some really touching photos. And I invited people from the British Home Child Facebook group to stop by and to share their family story. So be sure you scroll down and look at the stories that people are posting. It's so interesting to read, their stories about their grandparents or their aunt or whoever it is. Just very touching to read some of those personal stories. So I just want to say thank you. I'm not going to keep you a long time. I just wanted to pop in and say hello and share a little bit of fun launch week with you. And I will be back on Saturday at 3 o'clock right here on my Facebook page, and I'll do a second talk. I'll be happy to answer some more of these questions that you posted. So I hope you'll come back on Saturday and see you then. So thanks very much. God bless you. Have a great evening.